Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. This is a Cemeteries with Markers edition. I am in Richmond Cemetery in Richmond, Missouri. And it's paralleled with the Sunny Slope Cemetery, where one of the governors of Missouri is buried, Forrest Smith. But I'm going to be concentrating on Richmond Cemetery. All right, so here's a sign that points to the marker of, or gravestone of David Whitmer, and take one. And this one looks to be newly put up. Oh yeah, 2021. All right, so before I visit the grave of David Whitmer and his wife, all right, let's check it out. 1805 to 1888. One of the three witnesses to the Book of Mormon, David Whitmer was born in Pennsylvania in 1805. He was instrumental in the translation of the Book of Mormon and the establishment of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. David met Joseph Smith on or about June 1st, 1829, learning about him and his work from their mutual friend Oliver Cowdery. After helping Joseph and his wife Emma relocate from Harmony, Pennsylvania to his parents' home in Fayette, New York, David assisted as a scribe in the work of translation. Near the end of June 1829, David was one of three men shown the plates of gold by an angel named Moroni. They were commanded by a voice from heaven to declare their experience to the world. Known as three witnesses, their testimony has appeared in every edition of the Book of Mormon. David and other family members were essential to the building up of the church in New York. They later moved with the church to Kirtland, Ohio. David was among the first Latter-day Saints to move to Missouri, where he served as the president of the church for the area. Although he and other family members separated from the church in 1838, David never denied his testimony. From 1838 until his death in 1888, he lived in Richmond, Missouri. He was known as a man of integrity and served in many civic capacities, including mayor. This grave marker is a replica. With the consent of living descendants, it was placed in 2021 due to deterioration. The marker is replaced, and it was at the Ray County Museum now. Okay. Mary was the first person to see the plates other than Joseph. Within weeks, all five of her sons and two son-in-laws would be shown the plates. Their eyewitness testimonies to the world have been published in every edition of the Book of Mormon. Although she and other family members were separated from the church, Mary Musselman Whitmer remained true to her witness. She died in Richmond in 1856 and is buried in nearby Pioneer Cemetery, which is the corner of North Thornton and Crispin Streets, next to her husband and near other family members. So now we are going to go ahead and take a look at this. As it says in the marker, this was re-put up last year, sometime in 2021. Died in 1888. The record of the Jews and the record of the Nephites are one. Truth is eternal, Father and Mother. And so unfortunately the cemetery has not been well kept. You can tell, yeah, it definitely needs a good mow job there, and a lot of these headstones are either sinking, like this one right here. Let's see. And then there's one that's been knocked over, probably due to the weather. But over there is the grave of Bob Ford, or Robert Ford, and I'll just go ahead and lead you there. So one good thing about the cemetery, well, it looks like that part's been mowed. But yes, for the famous people who have been buried here, they do have signs, and Bob Ford's marker has been clearly marked by that cross over there. I just had to scuffle my way through this grass here. Hopefully there are no snakes. But Robert Ford is best known as the man who shot Jesse James. He, like Jesse James, was an outlaw. And so it says here on his marker, or his gravestone, the man who shot Jesse James. And I don't know when this was placed. I mean, you can tell this has definitely been a lot new, and people have put coins here. Bob Ford. Now his brother Charles is buried, let's see, man, good thing I'm wearing pants. Okay, he's buried here somewhere. Here it is. Yep, Charles Ford. July 1857 to May 1884. So in the first place, this is actually not the first resting place of Robert Ford. He was actually originally interred in Colorado in a town called Creed, and that's where he was shot and killed. But when he was 18 years old, he actually got to meet Jesse James, who he had really admired, especially for his Civil War record. And he and his brother Charles would eventually join the James gang, and they were living in St. Joseph, Missouri at the time. And Jesse James and his brother, they were planning on, you know, settling down, starting a new life, and giving up on crime. But Robert Ford was originally told by Missouri Governor Crittenden, saying, hey, you know, if you kill him or catch him, it's $10,000 and you'll get a full pardon from me. So what he did was, him and his brother Charles, they participated in a robbery, but many members of the James gang had left for fear of being prosecuted, and some had even ended up in jail after a botched bank robbery in Minnesota. But it got to the point where the Ford brothers were the only people that Jesse James could trust. So one day, he was at Robert Ford was at Jesse James' house, and Jesse James, because again he trusted Robert Ford, he was sitting in one of his rooms, and you know, he was trying to clear a cobweb, so the story goes, with, you know, of a picture or a painting or something. And he took off his gun belt, and suddenly Ford, who's on the other end of the room, he got out his gun, and after James heard the cock of a pistol, he pretty much turned around and said, what? And I don't know what his reaction was, but seconds later, he was dead by the bullet of Robert Ford. Now, Ford was eventually arrested and charged, but like I said, he was granted a full pardon. After the killing, the Fords went to Crittenden to claim their reward. But first, they surrendered themselves to legal authorities, but were dismayed to be charged with first-degree murder. But in one day, the Ford brothers were indicted, pleaded guilty, and sentenced to death by hanging. But 2 hours later, Governor Crittenden granted them a full pardon. So in many years, Robert Ford would reenact the shooting as part of a traveling show tour in the East, and he was a hit, but in the Midwest, he was booed by numerous crowds. And public opinion turned against the Fords for betraying their gang leader, and Bob was seen as a coward and traitor for killing James. And yeah, this was pretty much the general public opinion as far as, you know, which left Robert Ford in deep depression in his later years. So Charles, who was buried right there, was terminally ill with tuberculosis, and he was addicted to morphine. He died by suicide in 1884. Now, Robert Ford and Dick Liddell, they relocated to Las Vegas, New Mexico, where they opened a saloon. Legend has it that Ford had a shooting contest with Jose Chavez, a comrade in arms of Billy the Kid's during the Lincoln County War. But Ford lost the contest and left town. In 1889, on the day after Christmas, Ford survived an assassination attempt in Kansas City, Kansas, when an assailant tried to slit his throat. A few years later, Ford settled in Colorado, where he opened a saloon and a gambling house. And Ford closed his saloon, and as soon as silver was found, and then he made it into a dance hall. So, but that would be the last place he would be, because a man named Edward Copart O'Kelly would shoot him. It is said that it was in revenge to the killing of Jesse James, his hero. And again, he was buried in Creed, Colorado, but his remains were later moved and reinterred here in Richmond Cemetery. And of course, there have been numerous movies made about Jesse James and Robert Ford. Elton John even sang a song called "I Feel Like a Bullet in the Gun of Robert Ford." Many actors have played Robert Ford in movies, including Casey Affleck. And yeah, the whole shooting, of course I can go on and on about it, you know, the whole shooting and everything about him killing Jesse James, but it's been known in Bob Dylan's songs, even in a rap song by the Sugar Hill Gang, Apache. It is referenced in the lyrics, "My tribe went down in the Hall of Fame because I'm the one who shot Jesse James." Even in a Little House on the Prairie episode, depicted Ford as a student at the Walnut Grove Elementary School. Wow. Now we're going to visit the gravesite of Austin A. King. Alright, so who was Austin A. King, and why does he have a big monument dedicated to him? Well, he was the 10th governor of the state of Missouri. He was also a one-term congressman. Served as governor from 1848 to 1853. So let's see what this says here. This monument erected by the state of Missouri in honor of Governor Austin A. King, born in Tennessee, September 21st, 1802, died in Missouri, April 22nd, 1870. So besides a politician, he was also a lawyer and a military officer. So he was a Democrat, but he was also a Unionist during the Civil War from 1862 to 1865. He had 9 children, and he was also a lawyer as well as a military officer. Nancy, wife of Austin King, is also buried here. Also Martha. So he was married twice then, okay. And a daughter that died when she was a baby, Nanny. But again, I mean, this is a very nice historic cemetery, and unfortunately a lot of it has fallen apart. And I see, what is that? Oh, it's a Bud Light Platinum. Wow. I can't believe people come here to drink. Now take a look at that right there. John Fletcher Houston. I hope they replace the top half of that. Good Lord. And I hope sometime this year, 2022, it gets mowed.